Welcome to Power Fridays Live, the channel that aims to make a difference in the world through transformation, spiritual growth, and for entrepreneurs. Our vision is to empower individuals to live their lives with purpose and to make a positive impact on the world. We believe that power and purpose are the driving forces behind success and fulfillment in both personal and professional life. Through our broadcast, we discuss business strategies and techniques that can help entrepreneurs achieve their goals and take their business to the next level. We believe that through sharing knowledge and experience, we can empower each other to succeed and make a difference in the world. Now here's our host, Janelle Pulley.
Welcome to Financial Power Fridays Live. I am so excited to have with us this evening Charlette Clark-Wilson. Good evening. How are you, Charlette?
Good evening, Janelle. How are you? I'm great. How are you?
Great. I'm doing awesome, and I am so excited to have you with us tonight. And it's been a long time. You've been my co-host. Over the years, we've had great conversations, and you've just been a wealth of just support over the years, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Like, not only have you been my friend, but you've also, in a way, been like my mentor, because you're an author, you're doing podcasts, you've helped people change their lives, you're passionate about financial literacy, and we've talked about books that we love together, like book clubs. I'm so grateful, like, to still have your friendship. I think it's been over a decade now. It's definitely been over a decade now. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
More decades to come.
More decades to come. Yes. I'm so grateful for your friendship too, Charlette, because whenever I wanted to give up or wanted to throw in the towel, you were that friend that came to me and said, keep going.
You can. Yeah.
And so I thank you for your friendship as well.
Thank you.
And
so,
I know it's the end of the year.
Yes.
Almost the new year is approaching us, and a lot has changed since we've last talked. And I was like, hey, girl, you are married now. You've joined the club. I'm so super happy for you. I am so thrilled.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you found love, because we both in that boat. We're both in that boat.
Girl. And even though like today's topic isn't about marriage and financial literacy, like, so much wealth can be built when you've got two professional people coming together. Like, your life is an image of that. The fact that I know so many other people of color who have gotten married and they've combined their resources. Marriage is more than just love and hearts in the air, but it's about growing and making dreams come true and combining your financial power to create like what you want in life. So I'm happy. I'm grateful. And he's awesome. He's a singer, dancer, actor, lawyer, but most of all, he's my best friend. And he loves me like every day. He loves me every day. So I'm grateful.
Yes. And you are so blessed. You are so blessed, better than blessed. And we're so happy that you can share love and be in love. And yes, no, this is not about newlyweds and money, but hey, we'll get to that conversation next year, newlyweds and money conversation next year, because as a newlywed and now a new mom, there's different conversations to have at different stages of your marriage. And we have the conversation on the topic as we're ending the year. It's about financial planning in a sense, and the life planning. And more specifically, what people don't want to talk about, those conversations. So, I love your title, Daughter of an Exceptional Dad. And that is such a beautiful title. And we are both that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're titled that, and it's great that you have that as your title today, with this conversation, because it is a conversation that I'm super excited to be present with you with. Because we have a lot of background of relatedness. You've been
Yes.
through some challenges in life. I've been through some challenges in life, and we're finally at this point in our life to where it's like, thank you, God. The prayers have been answered, in a sense. And tonight, talking about the legacy planning, the final financial lesson is just makes me feel good about having this conversation with you, because although the challenges that we've had in our lives, we had a dad, we had a father in our lives, our earthly father, I should say, a dad that cared about us and that did for us in ways that daddy-daughter relationship. A lot of people can't have that conversation. I know, and I just feel for them. But I'm grateful, that you had the type of father, that you had in your life. And I want you to share a little bit about yourself, and just let's dive right in to the conversation.
Okay. Thank you. So when I talk about the final lessons from my father, my dad was the kind of person who was always about teaching his children everything that he knew. And it was like drinking from a water hose, whether it was teaching us how to change our own oil, teaching us like how to plan our lives. He also taught us about understanding our finances. My dad was the kind of person who literally sat me down and said, this is how you balance a checkbook. This is how you open a bank account. This is how you plan to pay off your home early. Like, my dad taught me so many financial lessons, living beneath your means. My dad taught me so many financial lessons that have sustained me over the course of my life, especially as a single woman for several decades before crossing the threshold. I attribute so much of the success that I've had in my life to my father. And I wouldn't be who I am without the lessons that he taught me. But before his demise, the most important, I'd say probably the most important lesson he taught me was we all have to exit this world. We all have to. So prepare your children to be able to live well, after you have left this earthly realm. And my father prepared me by, and we'll get into it more throughout this conversation, but he prepared me not just to be successful in life, but he prepared me to be successful during his transition, like right before he transitioned, during his transition, and afterwards, because he had things written down. He had a plan, and he wanted to make sure that his children were, that we were okay, whether he was alive or not. My dad was that kind of dad to be like, you're going to be good, and I'm going to make sure you're good. So I'm grateful. So that was the final lesson that I'll carry with me is my dad didn't leave this earth without having a plan, without having a plan.
Yes. And, as the Bible shares with us in Habakkuk, that write the vision, make it plain. That you have to write the vision, and part of writing a vision. And your dad, I'm not sure if he was kept a journal or not, but he had a vision of what he wanted for his daughter and his children and your life and beyond him living here on this earth. And I can say too, I can share this similar story that my dad did have a plan. And he shared, how he wanted things to go, and he told each of his children, how, we should carry on in such a way to keep the legacy alive.
Right.
And I love the book of Proverbs. It's like a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children.
Girl.
Yes.
Yep. My dad would say that.
Yes. And your daddy was a good man. So, can you really share, and I know that, there's certain things that, some people, you want to share certain things, and then certain things it's like, you're gonna, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing, because different people are going to hear this conversation, and they're going to take away something for themselves. And I just want to preface, whether you had a parent in your life or not, you're a mother and or a father teaching you these lessons, this is where you're going to get it here at Financial Power Fridays Live. It may not have been your parent delivering the lessons, but it's going to be your sister girl today. I'm giving you this lesson. It's going to be your sister. And I just want you to know that I'm very grateful and thankful for this conversation, because too many times things happen with the loss of our loved ones, and we're not prepared. And given that this is the end of the year, a lot has happened this year in my life, and I'm sure in a lot of your lives, who are listening, that you lost someone that you love earlier this year. And of course, with Charlette, that is the case. And we're going to talk about that today. To the point of why do you call this a financial lesson that your dad left you with?
Okay, thank you. So my father was this amazing, athletic, gregarious, funny, fun-loving person, but he was also very, very serious-minded. And back in 1997, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And my dad was like, I'm going to beat this thing. And the doctors were like, well, my doctor said, Mr. Clark, you've got 5 years to live. My dad was like, well, between me and my God, I've got longer than that. And that was 27 years ago. So my dad fought cancer, lived an amazing life during those 27 years, post being diagnosed. During that time, he paid off his house. I think my dad paid off his house at 54. My dad was a first-generation college student. Both of his parents, I think one had a 3rd grade education, one had a 5th grade education. But my dad always had this tenacity, the stick-to-itiveness about him. And a part of that was also being very frugal with his finances. My dad drove the same car for much of his life, but that allowed him to help pay for his children to go to school. That allowed him to set aside money to buy property. And over the course of my life growing up, my dad, like I said earlier, taught me so many lessons about financial management, living beneath your means. My dad gave me books to read by Dave Ramsey, so many other books, the classics, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, so many of the classic books, Think and Grow Rich, basically to help one with their mindset and to help one understand how to manage one's money. I mean, my dad also took me to seminars. But later in his life, as he felt his body going into decline, he would sit us down and talk to us about life insurance and tell us, okay, well, this is the money that I have here for my 401k. This is the money that I have here for my life insurance policy. This is the money that I have here. And so he walked us through his will. He walked us through his wishes. He walked us even through how he wanted his homegoing ceremony to be. And, as a 20, 30-year-old girl, or woman, I'm like, Daddy, whatever, you've already beat cancer's behind. So no, you're not checking out of here. I'll pay attention because you want me to, but whatever. And
so you didn't see that as a morbid conversation?
No, the beautiful thing about my family is that we are all about having the difficult conversations. We are all about it, whether it be about death, whether it be about really uncomfortable topics like rape, incest, bankruptcy, horrible things. My family, we hit things head on. We have conversations because we have friends, we have relatives, we have family members who have gone through some awful things. And both of my parents have been my dad more so, but both of my parents are very, yes, about speaking the truth, telling the truth, shaming the devil. So my dad was constantly telling us Hey, we're all going to die. I'm going to die. My dad was the kind of person, when they performed the surgery on him when he was first diagnosed with prostate cancer, my dad was like, he wanted to see a picture of the things that the doctors took out of his body. Like, that's how, and my dad would to me, and my dad would do seminars about prostate cancer, because when they removed the prostate, he got his health back and he was cancer free for a while. And so he was giving seminars and showing people pictures of things that happened during the surgery, just so he could let other men know, take care of your health. So that's the kind of person my father was. And that, for better or for worse, is the kind of person I am. Like, I don't mind telling people, and from my point of view, what so, like, take care of your health, take care of your money. And we had mentioned earlier, even when people get married, if people come from two different backgrounds of how they view money, you've got to have those uncomfortable conversations. So even my husband and I have talked about our end of life planning. So that's who my dad was. He talked about it at length to us. And so that's what I've carried with me now. When my father started getting towards the end, like this year, he made some changes to his will, and he went and talked to all four of his children, sat us down and said, these are my wishes. This is what I want. This person is the executor. This person is co-executor. These are the things that I want. And the kids were still trying to laugh it off. All of us were, but we knew that as much as my dad is funny and gregarious, he was also very serious in that moment. And he wanted us to pay close attention to, this is how you handle business. This is how you handle business. So I'm grateful to have had a father like that. And I understand that not every father is like that. I understand that not everybody has had a father. And that's where I would encourage people, especially women, to read a book, get involved with like a social organization where you discuss financial literacy, listen to podcasts at length, listen to Miss Janelle and her podcast, read her book, Money Flew Out the Window. I read it and it was great. So get the information that you need, because if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for my father teaching me about how to live beneath my means. So my father paid off his house in his 50s, and I paid off my house right before. Yes. So because of the lessons of my dad, I was able to pay off my house. I was able to live at half of my paycheck every year. I bought a car with my own money, paid it off within 3 years. And still drive it today. It's a 25-year-old vehicle. It's a 25-year-old Jeep, but I haven't had a car payment in 23 years. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Girl, I paid off a car and messed before my lifetime, but I don't still have it. It's just like, oh yeah, they try to tell you to trade it in and get something else. And I didn't really drive a car until the wheels stopped working on it. Okay.
Yes.
But I am so happy to hear that you're driving the same car for 23 years.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that is so amazing.
Yes.
And that was one of the lessons that my dad taught us and my family about having a car payment. He would always buy an older vehicle.
Yep.
He wasn't buying a brand new car every time. There were like 7 of us total, and with our combined, and probably 10 of us total with the combined family. But and it was just like we never had a new car growing up. And it's like, there was a reason for that, because when you think about your car payment, your car insurance, and new car, and the newer the car is, the higher the insurance rate is.
Right.
Because I am a licensed insurance agent in car, home, health, in life and health. And so, and I learned that the newer the car, the more expensive the insurance can be. And sometimes they want to stick it to you when you have an older car without all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
So I must ask you, with your car that's paid for, do you keep liability only, or do you keep full coverage?
I do not keep, I keep liability only. I don't keep full coverage. I don't keep full coverage. I keep the insurance that I have on my vehicles. It's basically just to protect if I hit somebody else, because the value of both of my cars, both of my paid off cars now, it's like they're both worth less than $5,000. So, and anything that breaks on them, I'm good with fixing. But the insurance I have is it's really just to pay if I was to injure someone else or injure or break someone else's property.
Okay, very good. Well, that's a good way to be. Not, you're not looking to replace your car, because you probably can buy a car cash and just keep it moving, which is really great. And it's probably not, and it's okay that it's not a brand new car in that regard. And I absolutely love that, because whenever you told me you were unemployed for a time, it was like, how is she out of work for this period of time? It was a long time, Charlette.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I was like, how is that possible? Because even with the people, we just had the COVID scare back about 3 years ago, or going to almost 4 years ago, that some people couldn't make it from
6 months.
6 months, not even 3.
Yeah.
And so, like, one friend of mine, he says, my mama told me to save for a rainy day, but she didn't tell me to save for a rainy year. It sounded like your dad was the type of dad to say, it's gonna rain. In the Bible, how many days did it rain consistently, consecutively? Well, 40 days, right?
40 days. 40 days, 40 nights. Keeping it real, I have been unemployed at least 5 times. And 3 of those times, it was for a year or longer. So, and I lived completely off of my savings because my living expenses were so low, didn't have a car payment. Where I lived in Georgia is inexpensive to live. I had a house. My house payments were really manageable because I had good credit. I could get a great interest rate, and I bought a house well within my means. So my living expenses were maybe $2,000 a month. So when working in corporate America, now, at that point, I wasn't making 6 figures, but I still had a decent enough salary to where I was able to live on a small percentage. So when things happened in corporate America and I lost my job several times, I won't even get into the situations behind that.
The restructuring of corporate America.
There we go.
Let's blame them. It's their corporate restructuring. Yes.
Girl. So the type of work that I do is within commercial real estate. And so I think everybody remembers in 2008, 2009, when mortgage lending crashed. Like, I was affected by that. And when that happened, I was unemployed for well over a year. Because, a lot of people were impacted, but thankfully, because I had, tens of thousands saved, I could still live a vibrant life. I could take care of all of my needs. I was still, looking for jobs. I was still also taking courses to educate myself so that when I got that new job, I could, make more money, which I did. I got my PMP, project management professional certification. I just made sure. And that was something that my dad advised me to do. He was like, hey, don't just sit on your laurels at this time, sharpen the iron, read some books, get out, exercise. But my dad also emphasized my father, and I'm sure he will want me to tell this too. He had worked at the same place for almost 30 years, and then he only had a few months left before he could have had full retirement. And his employer laid him off. And he was, and it was because he was asked to do something that was unethical. He stood his ground of not doing that unethical thing. And so he was laid off. Just a few months shy of like getting his full retirement pension benefits. So he was forced into retirement, I think at 54 years old. And between 54 and the time that he passed, he didn't have to work a full-time job because he had done such a phenomenal job saving his money. And that was something that he talked to his kids about at length too. So I wanted to walk in the footsteps of my father. I wanted to be responsible first, so he wouldn't clown me, but also, because it was just how he taught me. It was just how he taught me to be. So, and it sounds like your dad was the same way too.
He was very similar to that. And, you know, to let you know that you're going to make it in this world and you should not spend all your money in one place.
Yeah.
The biggest lesson from my dad was more or less the ant and the grasshopper. My dad was a farmer. So, of course, there's certain times that you plant and then you harvest and then you store away.
Right.
And growing up, we lived out of a freezer. We ate out of a freezer. I didn't know what fresh greens were in the wintertime, that you could go get greens at the grocery store in the wintertime. I was like, but they, because I was eating them when they were fresh in the season that they grew in. And so my life, as I got older, it's like, oh, you can get these foods, but then you're getting them out of season. And then, of course, there's a whole nother health conversation to have about that. But he would cook them, and we would cook food and freeze it, and we'd have it. And so there's this process and this method that it's like, you know, don't spend everything that you have in just the party, just to have a good time. That was what he was about. Like, you know, if you get some money, you save a portion of it. You put it away. You save for a rainy day. You be like that ant that needs to eat during the winter. You gather all your food in the summer, and you still need to eat in the winter, so you need to store that food. Well, meanwhile, the grasshopper's out having a good time. So whenever the winter came, the grasshopper was hungry. He was looking to see, and everybody wasn't out having a good time anymore because the good time was over, because it's winter time now. So that was one of the lessons that my dad taught me. And then, of course, you know, buying the new car, even though I did, but because I was a single woman and I couldn't afford to not have a car.
That's true.
Work. And then again, I didn't have the money saved to get the car fixed. So even now, it's like you have a car payment, but you still need to put money to the side to so that you can pay for the oil change, so that you can pay for the updates and the maintenance. You know, there's a portion of your paycheck that should go towards that savings, and then you can have a car account, and this is what you put away, so that whenever that happens, so then you don't have to worry about charging it on a credit card to pay the interest and things of that nature. So it's like, oh yeah, you've got to make sure that even though you got this car payment, even though you got the car insurance, you still have a line item in your budget to pay for car maintenance. So my dad was that way. Yeah.
You mentioned car insurance. My dad was the kind of person who would pile up all the kids in the van. We had a massive Volkswagen van. He would pile up all the kids in the van, take us to the insurance. So at that time it was, well, I won't even say the name of the insurance company, but he took us to his insurance, to his insurance agent, the representative of that company, and that they had a personable relationship. So my dad took us to the office of the insurance agency, and my dad had the insurance person talk to his kids, 10, 11-year-old kids, about the importance of insurance. And the insurance agent would invite us over to his house, have cookouts. But I remember even then as a kid, I understood, okay, well, I don't really fully understand how insurance works. But I understand that my dad values having car insurance, life insurance, house insurance. And so even at a very young age, my dad exposed his children to just some of the structures that we have, you know, in society to help to make sure that we stay, that we were able to stay in the lifestyle that we were accustomed to. And we were like a middle class income house or middle class family. But my dad wanted to make sure that he had insurance to protect all the assets, including life insurance, to make sure that his kids and his wife at that time were taken care of. So yeah, what you just said about what your dad said about making sure that you could make the car payments, but also have money to where you could do these other things on your list. My dad was very adamant about that too. And he had no problem talking to his kids about, like what you said, the ant and the grasshopper, working, saving, and just not caring what other people think, as far as like other people are spending money on things that they really don't need to impress people that they don't like. My dad was like, I don't care about them people. My car is old and it's paid off, but it gets me from where I need to go. And and I'm grateful. Yeah.
Yes, because this one guy I'll never forget at the job, he was talking to the water cooler, and he was talking about, yeah, the girl, she looked over, she was pretty, she was nice, she's in this nice car. She sees me over my car, my work car, he calls it, just an A to B car, but she don't know I got a Jag in the garage and everything. So she's looking at me, she's looking at my car, she's looking at me up and down. Don't judge a book by its cover.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Yeah, so your dad was like, this is the car I'm driving. This is the way I look. You can judge this. You can judge this book, but I got bank.
Got money in the bank. Got money in the bank. Got money in the bank.
Yes.
Got money in the bank.
All the flash, no flash, and it was really great that your dad was able to share that story, with you the importance of having an insurance agent, the importance of having a relationship with your insurance person, and that he trusted that person to trust and entrust that he would take care of his children. And so you, of course, sent me some notes, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a great question. And Charlotte, we can be here like a lot forever, talking about this, and I don't want to bore anybody. We're gonna have a part 2, part 3. We can have a conversation we can have a conversation about money and financial literacy and what our daddy did for us and how he shared with us and the lessons that our father taught us and the lessons that your father taught you. I was like, gosh, in that Rich Dad Poor Dad, some people wish that they had that Rich Dad lesson, and you're giving us that Rich Dad lesson. So thank you so much, for sharing your dad with us today. And there's that time that, of course, the health scare, and then you overcome these transitions in life, and then you have that final transition. Of course, this is the end of the year, and my condolences to you.
Thank you,
and to all of what you've had to endure this past year. And there's things
and
that
mine to you.
Oh, thank you. And there's things that, because even today, this month of December, and I thank you for that, because it's like you grieve all over again. Even though it's been 24 years, I lost my sister. She had no life insurance when she passed, but my dad had the money in the bank, and he took care of the funeral services. And I'll never forget the way the funeral service went. You said your dad had his planned out, his homegoing ceremony.
Yep.
When a person passed away with no life insurance, and then the family's left to make those choices, then you look to the funeral home and how they operate to fit it in or to make it work. And using the chapel at a funeral home, I tell you, this particular day that my sister was laid to rest, we had 1 hour.
Wow.
And it was like pushing her casket in the front door and pushing it out the back door, and they were pushing another casket into that chapel after we left. So we were ushered in and ushered out another door, just so another family could come in and have their services right behind my sisters. I mean, literally, when I say right behind, it was right behind. And I will never, ever forget that. And I'm that person who has an insurance policy to where all my information, I have it typed out. I have it written out. And I actually have free brochures for people who want to do that pre-planning. I have a document that I've given away, and I'll give away to anyone who sends me a message and requests it here. That gives the instructions that you want for your family. And we didn't have the luxury of that, with my sister's passing, and then with my dad, he told all of his children what he wanted, how he wanted, who he wanted to be in charge of what, and just like your dad did. And there was something that in preparing, in making all those preparations, and you asked the question, what were you not prepared for?
Oh, Lord.
That's a huge question, I know.
It is. It is.
So I was like, oh my gosh, because when I share with people about the importance of buying insurance, life insurance, and we talk about final expense insurance, and I did talk to my dad. I said, Dad, he lived in his 80s to be in his 80s. And I said, well, Daddy, you can get life insurance at your age. And he's like, well, honey, I've got the money to bury me in the bank and stuff. But then it's like, but you didn't have life insurance. So then whenever you talk about it, it's like, yeah, my dad passed away with no life insurance. It's like, you're the insurance agent. Oh my gosh. But he, had enough money to bury him.
Exactly. And that's, I hate to generalize, but unfortunately, that's not a case for a lot of people, people of color, people who don't have, all of their money stashed away, people who haven't saved for a rainy day. And funeral expenses can get really expensive really, really, really fast. In my father's case, 2 years ago, so he passed early this year, but 2 years ago, the doctors told him he only had 2 months to live. And his children came to visit him. It was around Christmas time, actually. We came to visit him, and he was really sad and somber and moving slowly. And we were like, Daddy, what's wrong? What's wrong? You're usually vibrant and blah, blah, blah. And he took us to the bank, and he wouldn't tell us what was wrong with them. And one of my siblings was poking at Daddy, like, why are you acting all grumpy? And he turned around and said that in the bank, turned to his children and with tears in his eyes saying, the doctor said I only got 2 months to live. And we all like froze up. And one of my siblings was like, you're playing. And I was like, no, he's not playing. So my dad had taken us to the bank that day. All three of his 4 grown children, the other child wasn't there, showed us the safety deposit box, showed us his will, showed us all the financial documents that we needed to know. And because he thought his end of life was coming then. So we were prepared for we were prepared to follow his instructions to the letter. What we weren't prepared for was 2 years later, because he obviously lived beyond those 2 months that the doctor gave him. Thank goodness. And I had 2 great years with my dad. And he was able to advise me on how to be a wife, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yes.
But what I wasn't prepared for was when he did start to decline quickly, were the costs that were associated with his health care, with caring for him, having to hire a nurse, having to put my job on pause to be there, having to travel back and forth from Atlanta to the city where he lived in, having to make sure that I was financially solid enough to buy him groceries, buy him medical things that he needed, just put gas in the tank to drive my 25-year-old car back and forth to go see him. I was prepared for what to do after he passed, but I wasn't necessarily prepared to see the decline. And thankfully, I had money saved away so that I was able to afford the expenses of taking care of someone when they were in their weakest moments. But it's a blessing to me that that he raised us to be so self-sufficient and so secure and accountable for our actions, that I, as his daughter, his first biological child, I knew what my responsibility was, and I met it head on. I think that knowing that he had made arrangements for his transition, that was something I didn't have to struggle with. And it made taking care of him a bit more easier because I didn't have to put a lot of energy and effort into doing things that he had already done for us. So that's something. Something I wasn't prepared for was the emotional and financial stresses that came with the last few months of his life. But it was an honor. It was an honor to be there with him. It was an honor. So, yeah.
Yes. So we thank God for that time, that precious time. And we thank you, corporate America job, for having, and the government for having these laws in place so we can take that Family Medical Leave Act so that we can be there for, and we thank that corporate America for that job that allow you to work remotely. So there's yes. And so, we do give kudos to, and we thank God that you are in a position, because oftentimes, there's families that have to really work on that. And there's, we passed the baton with my older sibling and me with my care for my dad. And, she came in and I left, and I came in and she left. So we kind of did a round robin, that came to my dad's care. And that's called, in the insurance world, long-term care planning.
Exactly.
Long-term care planning, because you are planning for the long term. And when it comes to your health, that's a health benefit that you can create for yourself. Even we need that. We need a long-term care policy. And it sounds like, of all the policies and everything, and, you let us know if it's appropriate. Did your dad have a long-term care policy? Did that, and some insurance people, they forget that one. We leave that one because we like, oh, they've got their estate plan together. They've got their life insurance that's going to take care of their house. If they leave this world, it's going to pay off the house. And, but that health part, that health deterioration part. A friend of mine, she called me. She told me one of her friends is dealing with her 40-year-old son having to be put in a nursing home at 40 years old from an illness, and a rare illness, obviously. And I was just like, he doesn't want to go into the nursing home, so she's got to take care of him at home, and he can't be left by himself. And it's just like so young. So these health scares are starting real early for a lot of people. And so that long-term care planning. So for yourself, and knowing that was a thing, or not knowing that it was a thing, but finding out that it was a thing, then now you would share with people, what would you tell everyone listening?
And that's a really good question, because I think in my father's case, luckily he had money set aside to where everything was fine, to where the expenses didn't impede him or me too much. But for other people, I would recommend long-term care planning, because you don't know when your health is going to take a decline. And if you don't have things set aside to where, if your health does take a turn for the worse, where is that money going to come from? If you lose the ability to go to work every day and bring home, your regular salary, if you've got a car payment or a house payment or even a family to take care of, that long-term care planning will be extremely valuable. It's one of those things where it's better to have it and not need it, as opposed to need it and not have it.
That's our motto.
I'd also say, because I spoke with another friend of mine, I had met two other people this year who also lost their father. One of my friends, actually, she lost her father last year, but she was telling me that one of the things that she was appalled with was the lack of care that the nursing facility was giving for her father. Her father was a veteran, and the lack of care that he was receiving at that facility was just absolutely atrocious. And so I think, in the same vein with long-term care planning, having access to that money can help people get access to better facilities if they need them. But it's so important to be an advocate for your your parent, your uncle, whoever that person is that you're caring for, that you love, being an advocate for them in the hospital, being an advocate for them if they're getting a nurse to come in to the house to take care of them, but definitely being an advocate for them if they have to go to a facility where other people are in charge of making sure that they can eat, sleep, be bathed, all of that. And these are not comfortable conversations, but these are the things. It's not. It's not. We, you and I have known each other for over a decade, but before we had gray hairs and me chin hairs, but before, before we got into this chapter of life, these were not things that we had to contend with, but now that we see them, and as we've got friends and family who have to go through them, these are the uncomfortable conversations that we have to think about, and put some sort of structure in place to address them, because one day it will be us, Lord willing, it will be me, 85, 95. And I'm going to want to have something financially to look at and say, okay, well, I don't like this facility, or I'm going to change nurses, or I need additional care. Yes. I'm going to be that person.
Yes. Have that RN come into your home, and because you want to be at home, because that was one of my dad's biggest things, where he was going to take his final breath. He trained my mother too. It's like, you want to pass away at home. The lawyer told him, you want to pass away at home. So it's like, what? The lawyer told you that? When he was going in to work on the estate planning. But it's just like, yeah, the where you pass away, it's a thing too. And it, I will never forget that with my great aunt, that she became a ward of the state, unfortunately, and she was put into a nursing home facility, but they took everything. Like, when I say they took because they she had to get a guardianship through the courts, and they sold everything. They sold everything. I think we were given the family Bible. My dad was given the family Bible. But when you're put into those caring facilities, in those nursing home facilities, and you own property, you've got to plan for those moments too. And make sure that you have the person in charge that you need to have in charge. And then if not, if you have to go through the court system and things of that nature, that they're gonna sell everything that you own. And those are that's why we're having this conversation, so that we can be like Daddy Clark. so Daddy Clark says, hey, no, you write your own ticket. You write it yourself. You design your life, and you design how you want your transition to be, and how you want your end of life planning to be. You design your life. And of course, we've taken our courses, and live your life by design. And the design that your dad had for his life on earth, his life for his children, and his end of life planning, it seems like it was on point.
It was. I'm grateful. There was something else that you said too about the having to go through the courts and go through probate. I met a woman last night at a jazz club. Never met her before. It was my first time meeting her. Her father had passed 3 days earlier. He was diagnosed with cancer during Thanksgiving, and he just passed away recently, like four weeks later. And she told me when he was diagnosed, she told her mother, hey, we've got to get a will in place. We've got to get estate planning in place. And her father was like, no, I'm going to be around. I don't care about what those doctors said. 4 weeks later, he was gone. And she said that now her mother is struggling, trying to figure out how to get into bank accounts, how to get access to stuff. How are they going to pay for things? But these are the things that you have to contend with. Sometimes bank accounts get locked out. Sometimes you don't even know what life insurance policies a person has, so that they can pay for funeral expenses or pay for things that need to continue to be paid for in the absence of that person. We just never know. We never know. So I'm glad that your father prepared you. I'm glad that you're in the position that you're in, to where you can educate other people. And provide them policies so that it can be life-changing for them and provide legacy down the line. Because we need it as a people, we need it, and we need to have these conversations. We do, as especially as people of color, as we're growing more wealth, we need to put things in place to protect that if something was to happen to us.
Definitely. I thank you, Charlette. I thank Daddy Clark, and I know that he's looking down on you and your family and all of us, and saying he did good. He says, I did good. He is not disappointed at all. He's like, I did that. Okay. As we say,
that is what he would say. He would say that. I did that.
I did that. And you know, that'll take us into another conversation of what you just shared about the probate, because I've got stories. And you know, it's just so much that we've gone through in losing a loved one. And today's an anniversary when I lost my uncle of his passing. And we found out after my aunt passed away where his ashes went. And
wow.
Yeah. And it was like those conversations and knowing what happened to certain things and what people had and how, you know, how things were dealt with is important. And I can't tell you, the love letter that your daddy left for you and your siblings was the love letter that all families wish that they had from their family. And that love letter was his estate plan, his will done, the life insurance, the bank accounts that were undone. Because when I got married, you know, I had a policy. I mean, I had a bank account with Bank of America. I'll call it out because I used to work for them. And I had a beneficiary name on there. It was my dad was the beneficiary name.
That was my dad. And, he was my beneficiary.
Yes. And I'm like, gosh, I've got to change that. I had to go to the bank and like change it when I got married. Well, I didn't have to change it when I got married, but of course, after my dad passed away, I had to look at the policies that I had with him being the beneficiary for, and I had to change the beneficiary name on those policies. And, you know, not to say, you know, my husband, you know, he was he is my beneficiary. And now we have a daughter, then she's a beneficiary. And I'm so happy to know that, you know, they have that for your bank. So if you don't already have a beneficiary name of a person that you love on your account, that you're doing business with a bank, that would be step one. If you don't have a will, at least get that beneficiary done. Because I used to work for Bank of America in the time deposit services. And I'll tell you, when it came to that 401k money that person had passed away, the person who sat across from me, who trained me in that job, we had to go and look at these microfiche machines to see, you know, these predecessor banks, because, you know, 30, 40, 50 years ago, that bank that you're probably banking at now wasn't it had a different name. And even now, you know, with who I bank with, it was a different name bank 24 years ago. And so they're going to go back in those files and they're going to see who is that beneficiary that person did on that paperwork for that retirement account, that IRA account. And she had to show up in court and to prove to the people, because the new wife was suing the old wife for the money, because she had to prove that. And my friend had to go through and had to go and swear on the oath that what she found and all of the paperwork that she found, that she did not find anything beyond that document. She didn't find that he came back into the bank and changed any documents that didn't update anything. Update those documents. If you got a new wife, if your parents were previously your beneficiary on your 401k plan, your IRA plan, and you got a spouse, please update it to your spouse. And your spouse had children. It was on 60 Minutes. The mother was raising 3 children. The parents refused to give her a dime of his retirement money and told her on national TV, if he wanted you to have it, then he would have changed the paperwork. And she's like, these are my in-laws and these are their grandchildren, and I have no money to, because she was a stay-at-home mom. And her husband had gone out jogging, heart attack,
Oh
heaven
my
forbid,
God.
and she was with no money in that way. And so look at that
Yep.
beneficiary on your
Yep.
bank account,
Yes.
on all of your accounts, and update it and make sure that it's left up to date, because we never know the day nor the hour when we're going to be called.
If I can add to that briefly, my husband told me about a close friend of his where the father remarried. The father was married to his wife, and then, or the father was married to one woman. The father left, got married to another woman, and then they got divorced. He passed away suddenly, but when it came down to the bank statements, the father never took wife number 2 off of the bank statements. But the children of the first marriage ended up having to go to her and say, hey, can we use this little bit of money in the bank that he left, that where you guys weren't even divorced? I mean, you guys were divorced, but he didn't mean to leave this money for you. He was supposed to take it off. Can we use some of that money to help pay for him? And this woman denied the children this money that she didn't even know was there. She was like, oh, he left me some money? How much did he leave me? And it wasn't a whole bunch of money, but she was like, no, I'm sorry, I won't be able to help pay for the funeral. So the children from the first marriage that he had left years ago were the ones that had to come out of pocket to pay for his funeral expenses, because wife number 2 she didn't want to let go of the money that she just happened to get because he didn't take her name off of the beneficiary form, or didn't take her name off the beneficiary form. And this is a very, very, very close friend of my husband. So these stories do happen. They happen. And this is part of it. Yeah.
We're not making it up, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And we are here with, Silver Lining Insurance to bring that silver lining to you, and Silver Lining Insurance Services, so that we could, help you with that. So what advice, Charlette, and would you give to people, who are looking at life insurance? And I know your Daddy Clark had it together, and and I know that you and your husband, you have it together, as you have a bonus daughter.
Yeah, I have a bonus daughter. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have it together for as well, for her future, and for her legacy. Then what would you tell people? What would you share with people from your experience of the life lessons that you learned from your father? What would you leave us with?
People throw the word generational wealth around all the time, but when you're on the receiving end of having that gift from the person who passed away, it just hits different, because it lets you know, okay, I need to make preparation for the next generation, for my bonus daughter, for my nieces and nephews. I would leave people with the advice of get your affairs in order. Get your affairs in order. Discuss your finances with your partner. Discuss your finances with your family if you're not married. And a significant number of Black women are not married. So discuss your finances with your family member, somebody that you trust. Get your affairs in order. And buy life insurance. Like, unless you just have such a significant amount of money to where you absolutely don't need it and you can pay for funeral expenses and you don't have anyone that you want to leave money to, whatever. But I would say, if you have expenses, if you have a child, if you want to make things easier for the people that you love in this life, have life insurance, have a policy, discuss with them what that policy is, let them know who they need to call if you were to pass away. Because the biggest gift that my dad gave me, and he gave me so many gifts in life, not even just tangible financial, but so many pearls of wisdom. The biggest gift that he gave me is that when he passed away, I didn't have to contend with worrying about planning for the funeral, paying for the funeral, worrying about all the things, scrambling to get the names and phone numbers together. I could just just grieve. I could talk to the funeral director and say, hey, this policy belongs to you. I could talk to my husband and say, hey, I'm okay. I'm okay. All these things, these other things are taken care of because Daddy put things in place for me. So we hear the whole adage, well, you know, somebody else will deal with it after I'm dead. Speaking on behalf of the person who's left after somebody is dead, I will always love and honor my dad 10 times more because he made sure that even in death, he had my back. And that's what he leaves me with. He had my back. So yeah, have your kids back, have your loved ones back.
I love that. You said that with a big smile too. With your beautiful smile. You said that with your big
got it from him.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. That is so loving. If that's not love, I don't know what is. That's the greatest. I mean, God is love, but the greatest love is what you just shared and what you experienced with Daddy Clark. And I thank you, Charlette, for sharing your story. I thank you so much for sharing the experience that you had of your father with us and the experience of knowing that you are good.
I'm good. I'm good. And good. You are, and I know you're making preparations for your daughter, for your legacy. So she's going to be good.
Yeah,
she's going to be good.
My mother-in-law's here too, and she says, oh, for her birthdays, I give X number of dollars. For Christmas, I give X number of dollars. And so Christmas, and I was just like, well, let's go into her bank account because at 0 years old, she has a savings account. They allow her to have a savings account at 0 years old. I called up a friend of mine, and I must, like your daddy, he made sure you had your stuff. Okay, so he had his stuff, but he made sure you had your stuff together, right? And so I called up a friend of mine. He didn't know I had a child, but he has some licenses that I do not have. So therefore I called him up and I said, hey, what would you do if you were if you had a child, what's the best way to go with this policy? And what I was looking for when I asked for, he didn't recommend it. He recommended a different type of policy. So I said, okay, we'll go with that. And I trusted him on that because I've known him for over, a couple of decades. And so therefore it's just like, your daddy had your back, and I'm just so grateful for Daddy Clark, and I'm glad that you can grieve differently. It is a different type of grief. You're grieving, but you're grieving differently. Yes, as a result of that, because I'll never forget whenever we watch these movies and you watch things that happen on the movies and versus reality and real life. It's two totally different things. And I don't care how much money you have, how much entertainment that you saw this person on stage, you saw them in concert, and then you're going to find out they passed away with no will. I said, what you mean? Aretha Franklin. Of all people. Yes, what you mean? Prince, what you mean? What?
That's right.
What did you mean? These people who made millions of dollars in their lifetime. And here, Daddy Clark, he was a millionaire at heart.
Yes, he was.
He was a millionaire at heart.
Yes,
he was. I just thank God that God laid that foundation in your daddy's life to lay that foundation for you and your siblings, and to know that you can continue to have that foundation so that we can live where you can leave an inheritance.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Charlette.
May for God your children.
Yes. So may God continue to bless you. May God continue to keep you. And as we say, be, do, and have the greatness that you desire, because the greatness is in you, and the greatness was given to you from Daddy Clark here on earth. So thank you so much, Charlette. We do appreciate you, and my prayers and continues And I love you. Love you, sis.
Love you too. I love you too, sis. All right. Have a great holiday.
Yes. Have a great new year. It's the new year is going to be the best is yet to come. Take care.
All right. You too.
Yes. Bye. Bye-bye.